Shalom Akim, Kahalayim La Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua Bahashem Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the great and apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone, authority Yahushua, for the strength and all to make this video, and Yara to Zoe find it edifying, and also exhorting, edifying meaning to build up, exhort meaning to encourage. But yeah, this is just one of many cases when it comes to the teaching of never trust thine enemy. Which we know is within the scriptures. I'm gonna read it. Ecclesiasticus 12 and 10. But nevertheless, as I said, it's just one of many cases, man, where, Jake, either the Israelite man or the Israelite woman, of course, in this case, it's the Israelite woman, went over there to Edom, thought she could get comfortable, and then, it's back to the spirit realm. So I'm gonna read this just so that you get some context, and then obviously we get some scriptures, and that'll be it. So it says on November 4th. Now sometimes on YouTube you could be scrolling and then you just see recommended stories like this as well. Just channels just flipping recommended in terms of, okay, this happened. Sometimes it could be memes. Sometimes it could be just literal stories of which hold some weight. So I said, okay, let me read this. And then, of course, it will be quite suitable for a lesson. So it says, on November 4th, 2018, Tamla Horsford, a 40-year-old black mother of 5, was found dead in the backyard of a home, in Forsyth County, Georgia, after attending an all-white adult slumber party the night before. So let's get into this. So Tamla had been invited to a sleepover by a football mum she knew from her son's team. She was reportedly the only black woman there the next morning around 7:30, against so-called black. She's an Israelite woman. But you gotta count the ignorance of these people, considering the society and how much Esau's put labels on us. Because Jake's got a simple mind. But you gotta be patient with them until the kingdom. So she was reportedly the only so-called black woman there. The next morning around 7:30 a.m., she was found face down in the backyard. Authorities said she had fallen from a balcony, calling it an accidental fall. But her injuries told a different story. So of course, there's always some kind of a narrative or some kind of a story of which is used to say, what's to excuse what actually happened. So part 3 now, it says her body has severe, and you could clearly see the picture here. Hold on. You can clearly see the picture here. That was the woman there, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Edomites, man. 7 Edomites, most of them smiling, but of course, remember, though we can't crouching. Hold on. In fact, I'll finish this, then I'm gonna get some presets and talk on it after as well. So it says her head had severe injuries to her head. Hold on. Her body had severe injuries to her head, neck, and torso. She had abrasions, cuts on her face, and a dislocated wrist. This of course, this type of scenario for brothers who know that movie is called Get Out. That's the movie that comes to mind. I believe Us is another one too. That could have been like the part 2 of the Get Out movie. Well, it's in the same realm. What else was there? Obviously, where Jake goes to a neighborhood, and neighborhood that is not really for them, but Edomites dwell there predominantly, if not completely, and then it's a trap for Jake. That's why you gotta be cautious wherever you're traveling, man. You gotta be very cautious. Obviously, remember to pray before you go, and certain places, just gotta let Edomites do what they do, and of course, again, never trust thine enemy. Just because it's friendly doesn't mean you have to accept the friendly invite. Anyway, so she had abrasions, cuts on her face, and a dislocated wrist. So clearly, there's some kind of a struggle from her end, with all these Edomites targeting her. These wounds did not match the explanation of a simple fall from a second. Yeah, exactly. Normally with that type of a fall, there'll be more so of a swelling, maybe some minor scratches, but yeah, more so swelling because of the hard impact. But nevertheless, point is Esau's got a whole load of lies just to pretty much allow a form of hate act to be executed. But this really was, the hatred of Esau Edom being shown here from these Shedemite women. So these wounds did not match the explanation of a simple fall from a second-story deck. No one at the party claimed to have seen or heard anything suspicious. That night, despite clear signs of trauma, the sheriff's office ruled her death accidental and closed the case. See, Esau's like, alright, obviously, gotta defend the Shedemite woman. But nevertheless of that, Jake is the bottom of the people right now in terms of how can I say this? Well, yeah, proverb, byword, as the scriptures say, words of which would be disrespectful to us, especially when you get into the history of certain words. So again, this is why we ought to know our enemy. That's the point. In the battlefield, if you know your enemy, it'll be easier to defeat. You'll be able to strategize or formulate a plan of which will actually be efficient in taking them down. Now, for us, we have to play the long game because it's through Yahweh Shem Yahushua. We have to be patient. Remember, vengeance is through Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Not by our own will. So let's get to hold on. That's 3, 4. It says public outrage grew as people questioned the handling of the investigation. It says, why weren't all guests thoroughly interrogated? Why was the scene not properly secured? Why did her family only learn key details after pressure from the public? After growing national attention in 2020, officials reopened the case, but it was later closed again with no charges filed. It says Tamna's family and supporters have never stopped demanding the truth. They believe justice was denied, and the key evidence was ignored. Tamla Horsford's case remains one of many where black women's death was quickly dismissed. She did not fall, she was failed. Her story matters. Her name deserves justice, and her family deserves answers. See if I got any more. Okay, not there. What's the last one? Okay, clearly not there. Let's see. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. The message is already there. This is just, Jake getting into it in terms of, what happened there. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Let me get some presets and Yatazar. It's a wrap. Right, this is Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, chapter 12 and 10. Never trust thine enemy. Just that alone, if you just commit that to your mind, it will help you to move in a way wiser manner than usual. Because those in the world, you think that, okay, everyone's cool, we're over racism and whatnot. But, the spirit, the nature of Edomites, the nature of these heathen nations in terms of their hatred towards us is still there, still lingering. Moab is more covert. Esau really is both. Some Edomites, they're more overt with their hatred towards us. Some Edomites are more covert. Like the ones in the UK, you can consider them more covert. And the ones in America, you can consider them as more overt. Now, it doesn't mean there ain't covert ones over there, but in terms of just generalizations. So never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, Yet take good heed and beware of him. Be cautious. Walk circumspectly, as it says in Ephesians 5:15. It says, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. So, you think that you've cleaned the glass, that's getting rusty. But when you clean it, it's like, you can't just use like regular wipe to wipe it off. You think that it's all good. No, that rust is still there. So what it really means is that the wickedness is still there, no matter if you think that, oh, maybe he's gone through therapy or whatever nonsense techniques that Esau has out there to, I don't know, assimilate people, to try and start acting in a certain wicked way, like psychopaths and, narcissists and whatnot. Pretty much all these terms that therapists use as well. The thing is, from that wickedness from Esau Eden, the point is you can't wipe it out. You can't wipe it out, man. You can't take an Edomite to a therapist and say, oh, he did this, he did that. And the therapist say, all right, do this, do that. That's going to heal you. And make sure whenever you think that thought, do this. No, the nature is still there. The programming of Yahweh Shem Yahushai for Edomite is still there. That's what that means where it says, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. As I said, get some tissue, get some water on that tissue, or use some wipes, and then see if that rusty mirror. Try to apply that on a rusty mirror. You gonna wipe it, and you're gonna realize, oh damn, the rust ain't going away. That's what that means. So yes, skipping on to 13, just to get to the point. So who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent? It says, or any such as come nigh wild beasts. That's the thing. He will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent. So if you then go, to an Edomite, and then obviously an Edomite is trying to lure you in, it's like, come on now. There will be signs. The Most High, and of course, if you're blind, spiritually speaking, then you're not gonna pick up on those signs. There are signs where it's like that, all right, this spirit ain't right. And of course, even scripturally, as we study as well, that also helps to know whether we're in a danger zone or something, to clear out. It says, or any such as come nigh wild beasts. That's the thing. So it's like, if you go near a lion, and an example of a wild beast, of course the lion's gonna have that, them predator eyes for the prey, because he's trying to eat, man. So of course that's his nature. That's the nature of the lion, to hunt, as well as these other wild beasts. They gotta eat, they gotta sleep, they gotta reproduce, and that's their programming. The same way with Esau as well. He doesn't get comfortable until he's done wickedness. In fact, I believe that's in the scripture somewhere. Hold on. This is Proverbs 4:16. For they sleep not except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they've caused some to fall. That's the thing, man. It's like, their daily, their daily spiritual diet. If they don't feed that nature, of the wicked, that Edomite, they ain't gonna be able to sleep, man. That's the thing, that's the thing. That's on the left-hand side. The same way on the right-hand side, if you don't do our service to Yahweh Shem Yahushai, will be in a state of discomfort. So yeah, Proverbs 4:16, for they sleep not except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. That's why it's in these nature of these Edomites to do evil, or else they're gonna flip and bug out. They'll be unstable. They'll be very unstable. All right, so so yeah, that's really the point with what's her name? Oh yeah, with that Salak, yeah, okay. Something wasn't well on my throat. Anyways, with that Jake woman. Hold on, let me drink some water, man. Salak, yeah. Alright, so anyways, that was based on the Jake woman. You know, obviously Jake as well, you know, can be susceptible to that too. And when I say Jake, I'm talking about the Israelite man. You know, those in the world of whom are not spiritually awakened, you know, or are spiritually blind, are still groping at the noonday, as it says in Deuteronomy 28 and 29. You know, still trying to search for purpose, supposedly. You know, they're the ones who'll be subject to that type of thing, and then that'll be their judgment. So yeah, Micah 2 and verse 1. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. So even whilst they're sleeping, or you know, in the nighttime, it says, when the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hands. So the Most High, Yahweh Hashem Yahshua, has given it to Esau to be able to execute such wickedness. Why do you think the sheriffs, you know, in the story said, you know, it was an accident? You know, because of course they're all in that wicked spirit. They're all in that wicked nature. So anyways, let's get back to this. So yeah, man, you know, this is just one of those cautionary tales. And of course, if you haven't seen Get Out yet, or Us, I think I might need to rewatch Us again, man, because you know sometimes the memory fades with that one. But with Get Out, of course, certain clips, even if you see some clips on YouTube, you know, it's clear. You know, that's gonna help you to have perspective on how these Edomites execute wickedness upon Jake. So yeah, you know, again, it's a cautionary tale. That's what it is. It's a cautionary tale. So yeah, Shalom, Yabashim Yashar, Brakatham. Once more, double on Instagram with the apostles. And once again, you know, Shalom.